Without question, Margo Robbie has certainly left her imprint on Harley Quinn history, being the first big-screen clown princess of crime, and getting to play the part for 3 movies and counting possibly. Her reign as Batman's biggest pain is historic, to say the least. Though it's not as historic as some might think. Let me explain. You see, a lot of people seem to credit her as being the first live-action portrayal of the villainous-turned-heroine, but that's actually not the case, because that particular title actually goes to an actress by the name of Mia Sara.
Oh please, it's Harley. Harley Quinn.
It also almost went to an actress by the name of Sherilyn Fenn, of Twin Peaks fame, who went so far in the role to actually portray the part in the pilot. But for one reason or another, she was quietly released, and all of her scenes were quickly reshot with the new actress in the spot.
You Dr. Quinzel?
Oh no, please. Call me Arlene, detective.
Harley, I appreciate your time. You Dr. Quinzel?
Oh, call me Harlene, detective, please.
Harley, I appreciate your time.
I had a dream of New Gotham, people writhing in pain, dying in the streets, everything under my command.
I had a dream of New Gotham, and people writhing in pain, dying on the streets, and everything under my command.
I know that 7 years ago on this day, you watched your mother die.
That on this day 7 years ago, you watched your mother die.
A few months later, Barbara Gordon became your legal guardian.
And a few months later, Barbara Gordon became your legal guardian, and there's no mention of your father.
It just goes to show you, never send a businessman to do a psychopath's job.
Well, just goes to show, never send a businessman to do a psychopath's job.
I'm talking, of course, about the very often forgotten Harley Quinn from the very often forgotten Birds of Prey TV show. Now, if you want to know more about that show, feel free to check out my video on the series. I believe it is placed in the comment section below, or at the very least the description. But the SparkNote edition is this. The series followed the trio of Batman and Catwoman's metahuman daughter Huntress, former Batgirl and now Oracle Barbara Gordon, and Black Canary's kid, who for all intents and purposes was really just a reimagining of the Black Canary character. But that series' main antagonist was none other than today's titular topic, Harley Quinn. Though this isn't the Harley Quinn fans knew at the time, and it's certainly not the Harley Quinn that fans know today. This was a very different take on Joker's main squeeze, acting a lot more Harleen Quinzel than she did Harley Quinn. Now, before I get into the depiction or the design of this variant of the villain, I think we first need to take a step back and remember what this time period was like for media, as this was made all the way back in 2002. And back then, first and foremost, accuracy in adaptations was not a concern of studios. As a matter of fact, sometimes they saw it as a detriment. Sometimes those in charge thought that making material too much like its source would actually somehow scare audiences away from it. If it looked too much like what's going on in the cartoons or the comics, well, it might not be profitable. Look no further than the X-Men movies from the 2000s. As much as I love a lot of these portrayals, I can't say that they were exactly accurate aesthetically. And 20-something years later, we're only just now starting to right some of those wrongs. Suffice it to say, she didn't necessarily look like the character at all times. Though later on an attempt was made. I mean, sure, she wasn't wearing pigtails or carrying a giant mallet, but she did at least eventually have an outfit reminiscent of her original design. And for Hero Media at the time, this was about as on brand as it could be. I think it's also important to note that Harley wasn't a character that had been adapted all that often, as she was a character created for Batman the Animated Series that had only just then started to cross over into the comics. Now, granted, there were once plans in place to bring Harley to the big screen in a 5th Batman movie, but that 5th Batman movie was never made due to how awful the 4th Batman movie was. This was really the first attempt that had been made outside of her inception to bring this character to life. So I have to give credit where it's due for even attempting to utilize and use a character who had only been around for a decade in a limited capacity. Though translating the cartoon character from the small screen into the live-action person, well, also on the small screen, meant that changes needed to be made. So gone was her original costume, for the most part, and gone was her accent and personality. Once again, for the most part. Don't worry, we'll get there. But just like the show that I'm talking about did, we're gonna save that for last. Because it's amazing how much of a character can change, and yet so much of them can still stay the same. This time around, Harley wasn't tortured, tormented, and manipulated into becoming Joker's henchman. She was a more than willing accomplice who eagerly took part in his crimes back in the day, though she did so incognito, almost acting as Mr. J's man in the chair, a sidekick from the shadows. She doesn't really have a public supervillain identity, so because of this, she's been able to continue her work outside of being a career criminal, still acting as a consulting psychiatrist for inmates at Arkham Asylum, which works out pretty well for her, as those at Arkham are all under her watchful evil eye. Whether you're friend or foe, just know, Big Sister is always watching. But it's not like she just works at Arkham. She's also on the outside taking in new patients every day, using her position of power to entice her patients to do her bidding unbeknownst to them. Although also sometimes knownst to them also, I guess. The bad doctor is in full control, playing people as her own personal pawns in her plans.
Man kills ex-girlfriend, then himself.
George was a patient.
Guess the therapy didn't take.
Oh? I wouldn't say that.
Almost every Freak of the Week this show has ties back to her, or eventually their arc ends with them having ties to her. Everything that happens is just all part of the plan.
I've made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment.
And if what happens isn't, then she adapts instantaneously. She still has the genius Harleen is known to have, but she comes without a lot of the psychosis that Harley is known to have. Actually, maybe that's not entirely accurate. There's still madness there for sure, but this time around it feels more controlled. It feels like she picks and chooses when to showcase the crazy. She turns it off and on with ease like flipping a switch, whereas typically after this character meets the Joker, that switch is forever up and she is forever changed. Harleen becomes an ancient relic from her past, and Harley is here to stay. Even if that Harley comes with future evolutions and new iterations of her, she is no longer who she once was. But that's not the case here. Mia Sara showcases the dual identity of the character and doesn't do a disservice to either side. I think she's an amazing Harleen and a severely underrated Harley, and like the jester she is, she manages to juggle them seamlessly, which is a rarity when it comes to depictions of this character. These two halves almost never come together and coexist. It's almost always one or the other. But here she does both, and she does both in a big way. Her Harleen definitely radiates big bad energy. She is a completely unassuming threat to the naked eye, always coming off as intelligent but never coming off as intimidating, unless you meet her off the clock. In which case she's a horrifying dictator that sees people as a means to get what she wants. And what she wants is to rule over New Gotham the way her boo once did to the old one.
I had a dream of New Gotham, and people writhing in pain, dying on the streets, and everything under my command.
Now, what's important to know about the show is that the Joker is only shown in flashback. While the character doesn't really have a presence on the show, his presence is still always present. While he's not shown often, he's often spoken of, as the character has been the catalyst for this entire series in general. The very first episode makes it clear that the Joker enacted a master plan, one which included killing Catwoman, paralyzing Batgirl, and trying to drive the Dark Knight to his breaking point. A plan which pretty much worked, as Batman has completely neglected his mantle and left Gotham City behind him. This same plan would wind up getting the Joker locked up in an impenetrable penitentiary, with Harley on the outside desperately trying to use her position into freeing her other half. Although, once again, that seems to be an afterthought in the grand scheme of things, as she's much more selfish and wants to see the city burn, just so long as she's the one with the torch.
Human beings are essentially selfish creatures, no matter how we try and mask it to the world or ourselves.
This is a Harley Quinn who wants the power and respect her lover got. And all things considered, she does a pretty good job of filling out his clown shoes. While she's still insane, she's less unstable, and this allows her the success that often eludes her cartoon counterpart. This Harley is cunning, she's conniving. She truly is the final boss, hiding in plain sight. And all things considered, it's a pretty good hiding spot, as our leads, the titular trio I spoke about previously, don't find out about her until the series finale.
Real quick, editing V here, I almost forgot to mention a huge part of her character arc, and that's only because it comes at the tail end of the series. In the series finale, Harley Quinn actually steals the powers of a metahuman, thus granting her the ability to warp one's mind. So add that to the long list of changes that were made to this character in transition from one adaptation to another. Yet again, it's considerably different, but it is at least interesting. It doesn't feel in line with the Harley from the comics or the Harley from the cartoons, but it does feel in line with the Harley from this show. Make of that what you will.
Look, I'm gonna be honest with you. This might be what some consider to be a hot take, but I actually legitimately love this version of the villain. Sure, she's not a picture-perfect representation of the Rogue, but she stands out as uniquely her own. Over the years, I've seen various variants of this character. This may be the first, but it's not the last time I've witnessed someone try to take the character in a completely different route. And I don't think any other alternate version of Harley has ever been quite as good as this one was. It is my all-time favorite Elseworld iteration of the character, and I feel like this one succeeds where Gotham Knight's Harley failed. It's a worthwhile villainous Harley as a solo act, which is something I can't say for most iterations of this character, because her arc typically goes something like this: victim, villain, anti-hero, assassin, hero, in that order. And sometimes even after being a hero, she somehow spirals back into villainy. But this show was created long before that became her character arc, and therefore wasn't entirely tied down to that. Regardless, one thing is clear about this Harley: there is no redemption arc for her in sight. She is beyond being saved, and incapable of saving anyone else. If somehow this version of the villain was allowed to continue, she would not wind up teaming up with the Bat family. Not in this lifetime. Now, at this point in time, I've mostly spoke about what was changed, about the depiction, about the design, but that's not to say that there's nothing of the Harley of old in this new rendition. I would actually say that Quinn shows herself in Quinzel in passing. She has her professional voice, which sounds like this.
I know you think you can't trust anyone, but I'd like to help you. If you'd let me. Why is it so difficult for you to let people in, Helena?
But her personal voice still breaks through in intervals like this.
Please, Harley Quinn. Now, bark.
Bark? Like what?
A dog.
And sometimes she can even find herself in fits of snorting laughter. Which feels very on brand. I have to commend Mia Sara on a job well done, because she very easily juxtaposes Harley and Harleen and makes them feel very much one and the same. Two different sides of the same person, present at the same time. Look, she may not be my Harley per se, but she was a more than serviceable one. If you've been sleeping on this performance, then I highly suggest checking it out. It is well worth the watch. And if by any chance you felt like this video was well worth the watch, and I hope you did, and you'd maybe want to see a video on the other portrayals of Harley Quinn, let me know in the comment section below by leaving a comment saying,
A Harley Quinn's role.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was V Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time, same bat channel.